Good evening. Welcome to My Health Career Navigator and our webinar tonight. I'm Jeff Oxendine. I'm the president and founder of My Health Career Navigator and also an associate dean at Berkeley School of Public Health and president with Health Career Connection. This is the third in our series of webinars this fall around graduate education. Hopefully some of you joined us for our first two, which were, first of all, just how to think about what you're applying for graduate school in the health field and some key considerations. And then last week we had how to strengthen your application and really become competitive to get into the school that really is the best fit with you. And we know that once you do that, then you've got to be able to pay for your graduate education, which I know is a serious issue for many of us, and it's one that we're going to spend some time talking about today. The good news is that that there are a lot of ways, an abundance, in fact, of opportunities to pay for your health professions graduate education, even though the cost is going up. And a key message for you is to not let the cost really deter you from applying to and getting into and going to the school that you really want and that really will get you to where you want to be in terms of your health profession's goals and dreams, because there really are a lot of ways to pay for it, particularly once you get in and once you get there, and even once you get out, and that you really it really makes a difference which program, degree, and school that you go to, and you want to make a good long-term investment decision, not just focus on the short-term cost, which is easier said than done. But that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's see. So let's see. Bear with me as we get this screen to go to the next slide. Okay, so what we're going to talk about tonight are, when you think about applying to graduate school and going to school, what are the key financial considerations? I mentioned the abundance of funding opportunities that are out there. What are those opportunities? How can you strengthen your chances? How can you make your best fit school work when it comes down to it, even though it might seem like it may not? And then once you get done with school and you're into your profession, you're sort of paying off your obligations and securing your return on investment. Because really, graduate school should have a significant return on investment, both personal, financial, satisfaction, and financial. So what are the financial considerations? And many of you know these very well, but I'm going to try to summarize some of them. And first of all, it's that you want to know what your authentic health career direction is, or directions that you're going down, because graduate school, as we've talked about in our previous two webinars, and by the way, if you didn't watch them, they are available. They're recorded and available on our site. It really is a chance for you to get the knowledge, skills, and credentials and the contacts that you need in order for you to achieve your authentic health career direction. It's a specialization, going to a graduate program, and you want to make sure that you know what you want to get out of it, particularly because of the cost. You know, there are, in addition to the actual financial cost, as well as the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is that you're not doing something else, like making money or going into another health career direction, or enjoying your life in some other particular way. So you first need to make sure that before you get into an expensive graduate program, that you know it's going to get you what you want, or at least it's going to take you in that direction. Going to medical school and graduating with $250,000 debt, and then deciding that you really didn't want to be a doctor, or going to a public health program and paying $60,000 for the privilege of doing that, and deciding that you really don't want to be in public health. I mean, these are not things. These are things that are common, actually, but not things that you want to do in terms of your life and your finances. So, the first thing is making sure you get the exposure, the experience, the mentorship, the networking to know what your authentic career direction is, and then choose the degree or the degrees if it's a dual degree program, which are really good returns on investment, the program and the school that are going to be aligned with that direction. So that's really, really key, because we know that it costs more to not only go to school, but it also costs more to go to school in many of the places that you may want to go to school in. And particularly the urban areas like the San Francisco areas, the Bostons, New Yorks, Los Angeles, DCs. The cost of living is going up as the cost of education is going up. So it's an undertaking that you need to be able to afford to be able to do in some way, and that the long-term and short-term benefits that you're going to get from that, and the earning potential that comes out of it, in addition to the personal, professional happiness and growth and things that come from it, are going to be worth it. And you need to really make sure. And part of this is saying that it's not just the least expensive school that you can go to, or the one that gives you the most financial rewards. I see students all the time, and it breaks my heart, that are choosing to go to much lesser programs that will not give them as long a term of return as a more expensive school might be, because of the short-term financial benefit that they get from going to that school, rather than thinking about how's that going to affect them the rest of their life in terms of their earning potential and their happiness and the kind of jobs that they're going to get. So, and I know actually a lot of people, and I'm one of them, that you come from a lower income background and you end up making choices that I'm going to go for the least expensive thing because that's what I've always done, right? Instead of buying the fancy tennis shoes, you buy the lesser cost tennis shoes and the non-name brand kind, because that's what your parents did, that's what you did, that's how you got by to afford. Well, when it comes to a graduate program, oftentimes our mindset is this: we're conditioned in that same way, maybe that we don't deserve to go to the best program, and a lot of people won't even apply to the strongest programs because of they think, oh, it's going to cost too much, I shouldn't really apply to that program, I don't deserve it. But this is not the time to play small. You have to use all that skill that you have about living within means and those things, and to make a good choice and to live once you get to that place. But don't sell yourself short on a program that's not going to give you the best long-term success. It's a life experience to go to school, which is worth a lot too. To live in a different place, to have a different experience with different kinds of people from different backgrounds, that maybe you're going to learn a lot from them. They're going to be your friends. You might meet your spouse. You never know what can happen by being in a place that maybe costs more than you're comfortable with, but that you'll still find a way to experience it. There are real constraints and realities that people have, and I'm not trying to minimize those at all. People, their income situation may be that they really can't afford basic things or certain programs unless they get full financial support. But there are ways to be able to do that. And also, you may have to work while you're going to school. You may have a family that you're taking care of, either your own family, your own children and partner, or still supporting your parents or contributing to your siblings or your overall family support, which I completely understand. But you also have those are all part of your story, part of your strengths, because to be honest with you, doing those things in addition to going to school once you get into a program may help you get into a program, first of all, and secondly may help you get funding over other people. So realizing that you have to do a good job of telling your story and knowing what your strengths are, maybe it is your background, maybe it is your racial and ethnic status or sexual orientation, or some unique capability that you have that may align well with the kind of funding that's available some interest that you have that maybe is aligned with the funding that's available. And realize, I want you to, I came from a scarcity background of thinking about, oh my gosh, the world is a scarce place and there's not very much money out there, and you can't really go for what you want and those kind of things. But I learned from being myself going to graduate programs and then now being in one for 13 years at Berkeley, that there's an abundance of financing opportunities that are out there. And there's a lot of money, and there's a lot of money that goes unused actually by students from low income and underrepresented backgrounds because people don't find it, or they don't look in the right places, or they're not going for it. So anyway, these are some initial considerations for you to really think about. But one thing for sure, don't not apply to a program because you think you're not going to be able to afford it. I can't tell you how many students I've had that were undergrad students and they weren't going to apply to Harvard School of Public Health because first of all, they never would get in, and secondly, they'd never be able to afford it. And lo and behold, many of them ended up applying. They ended up getting in. They ended up getting significant financial support, if not full rides, and they ended up doing great there and afterwards. So don't let that happen to you. In California, kids from the CSU, Cal State University system, get into medical school at the same rate as kids from the University of California system, but they don't. The numbers are far less because the CSU students don't apply, either because they don't think they'll get in or because they don't think they can afford it. So again, don't let that happen to you. I mentioned the abundance of funding opportunities that are out there. First of all, there are a lot of sources external to schools that you can go to in order to look for funds. These are Kiwanis Club scholarships, or when I was in school, I was able to be funded by something called the Golden State Minority Foundation, which was a California association of people who wanted to fund minority students to go to graduate school, and I got each semester I would get a check. I would get to go to a dinner, feel really special, uncomfortable but special, up in front of a whole bunch of people that were at the head table of people that were funding me from this association of people that raised money to fund me to go to school, and that was an external source beyond what they had available at Berkeley. And right now, given the internet and given other tools to search for these sources, there is no better time right now than to do that kind of searching on your own. And a key advisor, a friend of mine, Dr. Joseph Korvick from Columbia School of Public Health, who's their Dean of Finance and Admissions, he talks about how you really want to start early and often searching for different scholarships, fellowships, loan repayment programs, those things are available for the area that you're interested in, for public health, or for your geographic area, for the state of New York, or for the state of California, whatever it is. And look for national associations, look for national scholarship programs, look for tech companies, all kinds of different programs that are out there. And you might even and you need to do that before you even apply, because you might even find some that have early deadlines that you can secure, that even when you apply to a school, you might already be able to secure some funding from an external source and put that in your application. Say, I've already got a Kiwanis Club scholarship, or a Lions Club, or a Rotary Club scholarship, or something like that. Or I'm a finalist for one, and if I get accepted to your school, I will have that kind of funding. Some of you are might be Gates Millennium Scholars. They will pay for your graduate, some aspects of your graduate, health-related graduate programs if you go within a certain period of time. But anyway, there are a ton. It could be a whole other webinar. Maybe within my HCN, we'll try to, I'll work with Sunny to see if we can capture what some of these sources are. But there's a lot of funding out there from external sources. I get emails all the time from people saying, Jeff, I've got this great scholarship for Latino students interested in public health, and I've got nobody who's applied yet. Can you please send me some candidates? So those are things to do. Also, schools have money from their alumni associations, and sometimes there might be funding from your alumni association of the undergraduate program that you went to. Then within a school, there are campus or school level types of supports. The campus, the graduate division of our campus at UC Berkeley has different types of financial support programs available, scholarships, loan repayments. They've got a language fellowship for something called the FLAS, Foreign Language Assistance, something or other, for people who want, that you can apply for people who want to learn a foreign language and go to another country as part of their education, potentially to do that. It won't work for Spanish or something that's very common, but for other languages that are less common, that's a possibility. There are merit scholarships that are at the campus level, or your school level may have some of those kinds of things. And then if you get accepted to a particular program, like the Health Policy Management Program or the Joint Medical Program or the PRIME program, they may have program-specific funds that are not at the school level that you can compete for. But once you get accepted to a program, they may have some funding available to be able to help you out. Sometimes specific partner organizations provide those kinds of funds, and we'll talk a little bit about those in a few minutes. There are jobs, so there are funds that you can get just in terms of scholarships and fellowships, and then there are graduate student jobs, graduate student researchers working with faculty or staff on research projects, graduate student instructor jobs where you will teach, be part of teaching a course in grading and facilitating discussion sessions, those kind of things, sections. Graduate student assistant jobs. I think the center that I run at Berkeley now, we have 7 or 8 or 9 graduate student assistant jobs that pay $20 an hour and give you 10 to 20 hours a week of work while you're going to school and pay you an hourly rate to do that, those kinds of jobs, and work on really cool projects with cool people in the meantime. There are people who work part-time or full-time outside of school while they're going to school, and I think this is a more common thing for people in graduate schools of maybe a public health or social work or law or policy. I'm not sure that works so well for medical school. It does work in some degree for nursing school, and there are more part-time programs. So one thing for you to look at is can you get your degree in a part-time way or an online way or something like that? Again, if it's the best way for you to get what you need, not because it's the most cost-effective, but sometimes you might have realities that you may want to do something like that. Or a common thing in public health is we have people who come to an online program like Berkeley for their Master in Public Health, and they decide, you know what, they start working and they say, you know, I really wish I would have gotten that MBA as well, but then they get tuition assistance from their employer and they do an online MBA program or an online on-campus MBA program or an executive MBA program or something like that. They get their employer to pay for it, and they're able to do it while they're working full-time. There also are more online, on-campus degree programs in public health and in many other disciplines that you may consider if you need to work while you're going to school. You get paid for your internship, and certain schools are better. So one thing you should look at is how well does your school support you to get an internship, and how well do you get paid? At Berkeley, for example, our students in health policy management get paid very well for doing their internship. They mostly get paid between $20 and $40 an hour for their summer internship, which is a good way to make some money. And then post-graduation, you're going to graduate, and there are programs like if you're in medical school, the National Health Service Corps, or state loan repayment programs. Or today I was talking in Massachusetts, they have a Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers loan repayment program. And in return for service in certain areas and in certain kinds of organizations, you can get your loans repaid. Or you get a sign-on bonus from a company that you go to work with. Or some places will assume some private health systems might, if you're a primary care doctor, might assume your loan or give you a lower cost loan. So I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen after you graduate. Plus, you're going to get paid very well, many of you, when you graduate, which should be a good consideration. Even if it's expensive to go to graduate school, you're going to get paid afterwards, particularly those interested in medical school. And I'm sorry I didn't prepare for this presentation, but my colleague, Dr. Bob Montoya, has a great calculation of showing how much you would pay on a monthly basis for your debt for medical school, and how that compares to how much money you will make as a physician. Even a primary care physician making a paltry $180,000 to $200,000 a year that starting out, and I'm being facetious there, obviously, but that's how much as a primary care physician a lot of people are making coming out of school. So even if you have significant debt, if you start out making that amount of money, and if you have a partner, for example, who also oftentimes is making some reasonable money, that amount of debt is not a significant factor for that many years. It might not be the least painful thing to do, but it's something. It shouldn't deter you from going to a good medical school and being able to get out there and make some money and be a successful doctor. So there's a lot of funding out there. So speaking of funding, there's some categories of funding that are available. There are merit-based scholarships that are based on your academic performance and your test scores and those kinds of things. And you need to be a really competitive person amongst the people in your school or your program to get one of these scholarships. But they are available, and some of you are in that category, and you will be eligible once you get accepted. And when you get accepted, they may say, we've nominated you or we've awarded you this merit scholarship, which oftentimes those tend to be relatively lucrative. They tend to pay for your tuition and fees, and they tend to pay for your sometimes a stipend that comes with them. There are not that many of them necessarily, but many of you can be competitive applicants for those kinds of things. And there might be some merit-based ones at private schools that just based on your academic performance, you may not get a full ride, but you may be able, I think this is a common thing, you may be able to get a tuition discount or tuition waived or some partial tuition because of your academic performance. The private schools are looking to support people in that situation. Then there's need-based scholarship based on your financial need or based on disadvantage that you've overcome. You got to make sure you fill out the right forms to demonstrate that need. Some people don't fill out the forms correctly or completely to show the need, or they don't do it at all. And in order to be considered for it, you have to be able to fill out the form. And so please do that, and please demonstrate clear financial need that you have. There are some, and sometimes that could also be, like at our school, there's a Graduate Opportunity Program fellowship that comes with a full tuition and fees and a monthly stipend to help cover your living expenses and your books and those kinds of things. There are mission-based. The school may have a certain kind of mission that they have. Like at Berkeley, we have people, we want to produce people here or support people who are going to serve the underserved. We got a $5 million gift from Kaiser, so we're able to provide scholarships for students whose mission is to serve underserved populations, and that's something that we're able to do in addition to merit and need-based awards. Some schools are trying to have a commitment to increasing the diversity, defined in many different ways within their school, because diversity is related to excellence of education, and they want to produce graduates who reflect the population and can be effective in our increasingly diverse population. So some schools have funding available for people from backgrounds that they would consider are underrepresented, or that will help them create a diverse student body and graduate pool. And there's more and more funding going in that kind of direction. There's funding for research or fellowships that are special, that are more academic oriented. There might be funding from your academic program or a special program that you can be in. There are special programs like fellows programs that there's a new one that I'm starting up for students that will have some, you'll be a fellow in it, and you can get paid for being in this fellowship program while you also get great training on professional development and leadership development and grooming connections with companies and those kinds of things. So once you get accepted to places, and the key is to get accepted, your main job is to get admitted, then all these kinds of things are available. You do need to apply in the application process to make sure that you are able to be eligible for those things once you are admitted. Oftentimes, once you come to a school, they will, and you're admitted, they help you find funds from particular donors. There's one school that I know of that they have funds for donors who are from donors for students at their school who are twins or are from Canada or are interested in a certain aspect of maternal and child health or are interested in engineering and public health. Or there's a lot of different donors who give money to schools for people who are in groups that they're interested in, for women to go into certain kinds of roles. So these are things that you should look for that are available, both external to the school that you get into or within the school that you get into. There's the gentleman I mentioned from Columbia, Dr. Korvik. He is a twin, and I believe, or one of his relatives has a twin, and they got a twin scholarship that paid for a lot of their school. You can get money for, I mentioned language already, or for going into a service, as in the National Health Service Corps afterwards, or committing to work in a certain kind of geographic area or underserved community. And sometimes for going into a certain field, or if it's in a field where they need more people to go into, and they may pay for your school because you're going into that particular profession or school. Or you can get loan repayment afterwards, or you get a job afterwards, or employment during school. Some people go work for universities that they may want to go to because being an employee of that university will get you free tuition, or particularly private schools, not necessarily public schools does that work, but some private schools you get free tuition if you are working, even if you're a secretary or administrative assistant or an outreach worker or a billing clerk, you can get your free tuition paid for that university, or a huge discount or some contribution. So look for that. If you want to go work in the military, and that's something that people often overlook, that if you want to be in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they often are looking for people who want to be in health. And in return for your service commitment, you will get you will get your education paid for. A lot of people have done that. It's something you should think about, though, to be sure that there aren't, if you really aren't sure you want to go serve our country, which is a really important thing, but if you're not sure you want to do that, or you want to lock into that kind of restriction, make sure that you really look at all other sources in addition to that, to be sure that you are up for making that commitment to get the funding, but it may be a huge rewarding and growth experience, likely would be in addition to the funding. And then there are associations that are out there that might, professional associations in health, or ethnic medical associations, or ethnic physician organizations, or something like that, that may have scholarships or fellowships. Speaking of scholarships, the other side of the slide shows the different types of funding that you can get. So scholarships generally mean or fellowships tend to be things that you get without having to pay them back. And sometimes stipends for internships, or stipends for living expenses, or things like that are things you typically don't have to do something in return for. Whereas fee remission is something that's a term for if you're a graduate student researcher, they will, depending on how many hours you work, they will reimburse, not reimburse, they will actually reduce your fees and tuition. So at Berkeley, if you work more than 10 hours a week as a graduate student researcher, they will pay for a certain portion of your fees and tuition, and if you work 50%, it may be 100%. I think it's half if you're 25%, and all if you're 50% or more. Which that's a huge benefit, and plus oftentimes you get paid an hourly rate in addition to that. Some places have tuition assistance. Some employers will pay for you to go back to graduate school if you keep working there. You promise to work for them afterwards. I had one student who was working for his company. They paid for his. He had a family with a couple of kids. He had to keep working, so he worked full time. But his employer for 3 years paid for him to get his master's in health administration in an online on-campus program at the University of Minnesota, and it worked out really well for him. You can always get hourly pay. You can get loans. You can take out loans. You can have work-study, which allows you to work, and is a benefit to the organization to pay you, because the federal government pays for a portion of your total cost, which helps you work off some of your loan obligations. There are loan forgiveness programs when you are finished, either for certain kinds of companies or professions, or for certain programs, again, like National Health Service Corps, or many now state loan repayment programs for not only doctors, for nurse practitioners, for physician assistants, for social workers, for mental health professionals of all different kinds. There are all these loan forgiveness programs that are out there now that you should definitely check into. Some places, sign-on bonus is part of the deal. I had a student who graduated from Berkeley a few years back and really wanted to go into health policy out in DC afterwards. Her family was from there. Her passion was doing that work around women's health policy, but she had done her internship in a private company out here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they offered her a great salary, twice the salary that she could have made to go work in health policy in DC, plus a really significant sign-on bonus, and she decided that that she could put her plans of going to DC on hold for 2 years, and that the amount of money, the difference in the sign-on bonus and the amount of money that she would make from her salary would allow her to pay off her debt within those 2 years, and then she'd still go out and do her work in DC and work on women's health policy. She'd even be better prepared because she worked in a great company. She got even more skills and experience. She'd have more to offer, and she'd be in a better financial position because of the differential in salary and the sign-on bonus that they would pay. And so even those of us who want to serve the community as a main mission, sometimes you might sequence things in a way that you still can go serve the community or still do what you're passionate about, but you can get your money paid off by the sign-on bonus and salary. And there's more and more private companies that are paying well in the health field. There's more and more just major health systems. There is going to be a talent there is already, and there's going to only increasingly be a talent war in the health field. And so you, particularly if you have unique skills or certain kinds of backgrounds that you have to offer. So the salaries when you are done are going to be increasing. And so again, the cost might be increasing, but also you go to the right school, the right fit for you, you do what you want to do, you're good at it, you're prepared like employers want, you're going to get paid well, and you're going to get a good salary to help compensate. And then you can also win awards. You know, I've been fortunate. I took a huge salary cut to come do what I'm doing at UC Berkeley, and during this time I've been able to get, because I'm working on what I'm passionate about, I've been able to get some financial rewards from foundations and other things that have been helpful to me. So there's a lot of ways to pay for what you really want to do. There's an abundance of these ways, and make sure you do your homework and take advantage of them. So how can you strengthen your chances? And we're only got a couple more slides here, then we'll have time for your questions, of getting the funding that you want. First of all, it's doing your research, as Dr. Korvik advises. And by the way, we have a webinar that Dr. Korvik and a couple of other admissions deans did last year on financing your graduate education that I encourage you to watch on MyHCN. Do your research and do it ahead of time, and really exhaust all your options outside of your school and in the schools that you're applying for. Joining associations that might offer these kind of scholarships, or might have connections to people who do, or might meet people in them and be active in them before you get into a school, or while you're in school, because oftentimes things happen when you're in the school that aren't possible ahead of time. You don't know until you go there. But once you get there, all kinds of additional funds and opportunities become available. So strengthen your qualifications. Your number one job is to get into the school that you want to get into. And it helps to get into more than one school, because then you can hopefully have more options, and you can, in a very non-entitled, appropriate way, you can play the schools off against each other to be able to get a better financial package, or just be able to say, you know, I'd really like to come to your program, but I need to be able to have a certain level of financial support to be able to do it. You've demonstrated that need in the story that you've told, and it helps to be able to then say, and X school is giving me this kind of financial package. I'd like to come to your school. Is there anything else you can do? So you need to not be afraid to ask, have 20 seconds of courage to be able to ask, and do it in a non-entitled way. But having options makes you more competitive for funding. Being able to really do a good job of demonstrating your need, telling your story, writing it in your statement of purpose, or your personal statement, or both, or the supplemental application. This is not the time to hold back. Say how disadvantaged you were. Say how much you overcome, the hardships that you had. It may not be really something you'd like to share, but now is the time, because to be honest with you, some of this funding comes for the people who can make the case that they are the most disadvantaged. It might also help you get into these different schools. Build relationships with people so that they will be working for you, including champions. They'll help. They want you to come, particularly once you're admitted. They want you to come. Get them on your side to help you find the money and have them help you be creative and connect to people and have them really working for you. And take advantage of relationships that you have from the past. I've had students who were former Health Career Connection interns that once they get in, they come to me, they get into Berkeley or other schools, and I give them advice and I connect them to people, and I make them aware of different funding options that are available. So use the people that you know to help you. And then I mentioned already, having options is really important and not being afraid to ask. So other ways to strengthen your chances are be aware of the deadlines. There are some schools, I know Columbia School of Public Health, they were saying if you want to get financial aid, you have to apply earlier than the regular deadline that they have, or at least in the earliest wave of applicants, because once they start admitting people, they start identifying financial support for those people and scholarships and fellowships and those kind of things. So some schools have rolling admissions or 3 different rounds or something like that. You need to apply early, make sure that you're first in line to be able to get whatever kinds of funds are available. And then also then you know that you've gotten into one of those programs early, and then you can you get leverage at that school or other schools. Meet with key players and show up at events. I have had students that have come to Spring Visit Day without any money for admitted applicants, and they show up, they make good relationships with people, they show that they really want to come to Berkeley or other places, and in the past they've been, as money's been available, another strategy is actually waiting till you decide until the actual deadline. Money became available because other students didn't come, and because those people were here, they were known, they made a good impression, and they ended up getting funding. And so it's a really good thing to be able to do this. This issue of waiting until the actual deadline before you confirm is an important one, because what ends up happening, and letting them know you need money, because if you commit in January that you're going to come to a school, they've got you. Great. Jeff's going to come. Cool. We can now go on to all the people who haven't committed. Versus Jeff still is going to come because it's his dream school, but he doesn't commit until April 15th or right after, because that's the deadline, the quote-unquote deadline for getting into a school, and money becomes available because other students declined going to that school. People who got scholarships or fellowships decided not to come, or money became available. A scholarship, a donor gave some money, or a federal scholarship the school got, a traineeship the school got. That's what I forgot to mention. There are many programs have traineeships, maternal child health, public health nutrition, epidemiology. Some of those programs have traineeships that the schools can use to help fund you. So wait until the deadline. Start early, though, working on funding once you know you're interested in coming to a school. Make sure you build your network, have the courage, and then also be open and creative to things. Maybe it's not, particularly those of you whose families are not comfortable with debt, which I know is a cultural and a social class thing or a socioeconomic class thing. Sometimes you might have to be open to taking on some debt as a way to go to the school that you want. But then once you get there, you end up finding out that there are scholarships or other sources available, or part-time jobs, or graduate student researchers, and you end up getting the money that you need anyway, and you can pay off the debt. I mean, so anyway, be open and be creative, and have the courage. I had one student who, one of my favorite stories is a student that I had from the East Coast who got into schools on the East Coast, and that they were willing to give her a full ride. But she said, you know what, I really want to come to Berkeley. I want to have I think it's the best fit school for me. I want to be able to come out to California and have that life experience. And so she ended up coming out here, turning down full offers at other schools that were close to home for her, because she didn't feel like they were the best program or the best experience for her. She came out to Berkeley. Within the first month, she got a job as a graduate student assistant, and lo and behold, a new scholarship for disadvantaged students became available that ended up funding her for the rest of her time, full fees the rest of her time, and she ended up also getting paid really well for her internship and a number of other things that eliminated the financial barrier. And not only did it eliminate the barrier, she had a great experience. She's one of the best students we had. She got an amazing job Afterwards, she's doing exactly what she wants, by the way, back in her hometown. And she met her husband by being here at Berkeley. He was an exchange student who was only here for a semester, but by having the courage to come to the right place, she was in the right place at the right time for her life. And she's now married and has a wonderful child and is doing really, really well. So that took courage to be able to come because it was the best fit school. And she was from a low-income background, immigrant family, but she had the courage to do what was best for her, and it paid off. And I'm confident the same thing will happen to you. So, how to make your best fit school work. You just heard a story about one student who was able to do that. The key again is to get in, and then once you're in, all kinds of opportunities will avail of themselves, or go to that school. And once you're there, additional scholarships. And here, particularly, alumni scholarships come up not when you're applying, when you're here in your second year. Do the math, like I mentioned earlier. Even though there might be a lot of debt that you have to incur at that particular school, or the school costs way more than another school, do the math and say, you know what, for the reputation of this school, for the contacts I'm going to make, for the jobs I'm going to be able to get from being in this school versus another school, it doesn't cost me. Yes, it's going to cost me more. Yes, I'm going to incur some debt, but I'll pay it off over my lifetime. The return on investment. So go for the best fit. Don't play small. Go for the best long-term return on investment. Make sure that you exhaust all the sources that are out there, both in and outside the school, and go for it. And have the faith that it's going to work out. I know that's an easier said than done. Also not easy for your family oftentimes because of their situation, but engage them in the process. Help them understand there is an abundance of opportunities and that you are somebody who has options. You don't have to pick the lowest cost option. And then still figure out ways that you can contribute to them financially as needed. One other thing you have going for you is if you are from a low-income background or if you've been a student, you know how to live without that much overhead or expenses. I have one friend who's working in startup companies, and he's been out of school for a long time. He's like, Jeff, I remember what it was like to be low income. I remember what it was like to be a student. I can live without that. And he's right now working for no salary for 9 months for a startup company because of the potential big return. But he's learned how to live at a certain income level and is able to do that. Find a partner. Sometimes you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this on your own. If you have a couple income, most families are dual income families or dual partner families in some way. That might help you be able to make the expenses. There are times when one partner makes more money than the other, so the other can go back to school or take a lower paying job or something like that. And then make sure that you build good relationships with people, because it all does come down to good relationships. And don't forget that you're going to have a lot of time to make money and get loans or have military service or those things after you graduate. So to pay it all off, pick jobs, as I mentioned in the story earlier, that will allow you to be able to pay off your debt, maybe on your way to doing the real kind of work that you want to do, or maybe you really like being in the job that pays a lot of money. And I had one student who just said, Jeff, I've been poor for all my life. My family's still poor. Is there any way, can I just get a job and make some money for a little while and help contribute to my family? The answer is yes. Even though she wants to serve the community, it's okay to do that. Make sure that you love what you do, which is the best return on investment of all. I took a 65% salary cut to come to do what I do here at Berkeley, but it's the best decision I made because it's priceless to love what you do and the people that you work with and to get to do what you're really supposed to do, your authentic career, right? And then realize that you can, with low overhead expenses, you can advance in your career and make some money. We've talked about a couple of these other things. So the next steps are to ask some good questions in the question and answer session here, to refine your authentic career direction, and make sure that you go for the opportunities that are out there. Do your homework, build the relationships, make sure you've got a good story to tell to help show how amazing that you are, why you deserve that merit scholarship and the mission and diversity scholarships. Get into the programs, because once you're in, people are going to work for you to be able to get there, and you're going to be able, or once you go, you're going to make it work because you'll have that capability. People who are survivors and resilience will figure out a way to make it work. Take risks, like the person I told you who came out to California without having the things paid and then got her whole education paid and met her husband. And then go for your dreams and go for the best fit school that's going to get you there. Don't play small. Don't settle for something just because it's going to have better financial support if it's not really the best program for you. So with that, it's time for your questions.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And thank you to everyone who has joined us, and thanks to everyone who has sent in questions. So let's jump right into those, and Sunny Bernard will also be joining us and answering some of these questions as well. So most of our questions actually involved working during grad school. One of them was about whether or not it's smart to work during grad school, or if it's better to just focus completely on grad school opportunities and assuming that you're not doing more research-based grad school type jobs.
So first of all, it depends on the kind of school that you're in and the kind of program that it is, and if it's designed for people who are working, of which more and more there are programs that are designed for people who are working, and that's a way that a lot of people pay for themselves to live and to go to school. And if in some of the programs, it may depend on if they how intense they are at the beginning, and also how long you've been out of school and how much time you need to adjust to being in graduate school. It is a real adjustment to be in graduate school, particularly if you've been working for a while. It is more demanding than undergraduate in some cases, and so there oftentimes are people who work during their first semester either on campus or in the real world, but they may work 10 hours a week or something like that. There are people who work because that's part of their fellowship or part of their funding is to be able to graduate student instructor, graduate student researcher, something like that. And there are people who don't work for the first semester because it's challenging enough to just try to adjust to being in a new place and a new school, and people have to get comfortable with being in graduate school, and so some people or sometimes programs are too intense. Medical school, MBA programs, some Master in Public Health programs. So some people don't work the first semester, but they save up their money to be able to do that, or they use some of their loan funds to be able to support that, and then they might get a job in the second semester for a certain amount of hours that they can afford after they're comfortable with graduate school, and then they work in their summer internships and get paid a good amount to be full-time in their summer internships. Sometimes people work over the winter breaks. Sometimes people go back to their old employers, and I did that when I was in school. I went back to my old employer and said, hey, I've got 6 weeks off for winter break. Can I come work for you? And I would work full-time for 4 out of those 6 weeks or something like that. So it also depends on your own energy and your own capacity to be able to do things. So that's my advice. Sonny, what would you say?
No, I would second most of that. I think personally it does depend on the situation that you're in, because some people really do need the money, so they may not have a choice because they have to pay for things like rent. But me personally, I would suggest getting a feel for it your first semester, and then getting a sense of what you can handle. If you can, handle the classes and find time to work, because that's what I did my first year, because I had been away from undergrad for a little while. So me coming in, I wanted to take the first semester to get a sense of how much I can handle. And typically, the students within the programs that I did, most of us worked, but we didn't do it the first semester. We waited.
You want to get off to a good start.
Mm-hmm.
So on that same theme, we have a couple people asking about TA or grad school instructor positions, and whether or not those are available to all grad students, and how that process works, how to get into those positions.
Sonny, you did that, and
Yeah.
also
Yeah,
tell me who you worked for too. Pretty good opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm a big fan of GSIs, being a graduate student instructor and being a researcher, because not only are you getting paid and helps you with school, but it's something to add to your resume. And not only that, you have a supervisor working with you and stuff like that. So that's also another opportunity for you to network. But honestly, when it comes to opportunities like that, it depends on the schools that you're applying to. Because I know, when I was applying for graduate school, it's very stressful to apply. You fill out these applications, write these letters, and it's so stressful. But then I got the admissions letter. I'm excited. I got in, but now I have a new stress. How do I pay for it? So what I did was I reached out to the different schools and find out about the graduate student instructor positions, researcher positions. And some schools require, I know that, for instance, for Columbia, they'll only let you take advantage of those opportunities if you're a PhD student. And other programs, I noticed that, but like with Berkeley, it's completely different. I think that that's one of the big advantages of UC Berkeley and the UC system, because the same thing with UCLA, they had an abundance of opportunities that are available for current grad students. So let's say, for example, that you majored in physics. No, let's say psychology. You majored in psychology and you're going off to graduate school. It would behoove you to reach out to a psychology professor and say, hey, I'm a student. I've read your work. I'd really like to help you with your Psych 101 class. Is there any opportunities for me to do that? And that's the approach I would say to kind of like go like with that. But I definitely encourage it because it's a great experience to have on your resume.
Okay, Jeff, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think what Sonny said is great. And Sonny was a graduate student instructor for Robert Reich, probably one of the most famous professors at Berkeley and one of the most famous political people in the whole country. And now Sonny has Robert Reich he got to have that experience, but also has Robert Reich as a mentor and a person to help him make connections too. So you get that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So the next question is a little bit moving over to the emotional side of things. So when you are applying to certain programs and wanting to get funding that is specific to that program, I know a lot of times you don't know whether or not you're going to get that or what that even is until after you're accepted into the program. So how do you deal with the anxiety of not knowing what's going to be available to you? And I know you talked a little bit about kind of taking risks and jumping into things and you know, doing your research to make sure you do as much as you can. But for the elements that you can't prepare for and you're not sure about, do you have any strategies for dealing with that stress and anxiety?
I can, if you want.
Go ahead,
jump
Sonny.
on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, sure. Like for that, like I know because it's very stressful figuring that stuff out. You know, like once you get the admissions letter, one of the things, and we've talked about this like in our past like webinar series, is informational interviews with current students. So like after you get admitted into these programs, you should ask the students like who are currently there, how do you finance schools? Like how do you finance your education? What opportunities are available? And just by talking to students, they'll be super excited to help you. And then, you know, things will be a lot easier for you. And I know because I came here to Berkeley, I know there's an abundance of opportunities here. You just have to go out and like get them. And every student that I know that was looking for a graduate student instructor position or a graduate student researcher position, they all got them. It's just that you have to be on the lookout for it. But it's important. That's why it's important to do the informational interviews, because scholarships are hard sometimes to come by, but there's alternate ways, which Jeff covered comprehensively, and it would behoove you to talk to other students within the program, and that might ease your angst a little bit.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, again, once you get in, then as Sonny said, you know, you should go, all right, I made it, I did it, that's great. And then there's a little more anxiety about, okay, how am I going to pay for this? But that's when you find a person who is in a position of influence who wants you to come, and you start talking to them. You say, look, I am so excited about coming to your school, and I need to be able to find some more financial support to be able to do it. And you just let them know that consistently. You let them know when you've gotten into another school. As I mentioned, having other options helps you. And you just keep working with them. And you don't commit right away, which is part of the anxiety, I know. It's even harder to wait. But as I mentioned, wait till the deadline. Show up at events, come to spring visit day, come to meet with people in their office, like Sonny said, informational interviews, not only with students, but also with faculty and other players. And just say, you know, what will help reduce my anxiety is action. And by action, I'm doing what I can rather than just waiting for something to happen. Which, you know, I'm going to take action, all that I can do that's within my control to position myself to get the funding that I need, uncovering all the different stones that are involved. But then have the faith, the fact that you got in, they want you, and that they're going to be able to try to work something out for you, even if it's the last minute. and that's where having faith and is not easy, but it might even be, and even maybe sometimes let the deadline expire by a day. They're not going to take away your position and then go back to them. And anyway, you're going to have to be comfortable. You're going to have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable until the whole process plays out. I know it's not easy, but once that you're in, that's your number one job. And once you let them know that you need the funding and you're willing to do all kinds of things, then that's when it should be reduced. Sonny, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you take one thing from this entire webinar, it's just exactly what Jeff just recapped, because I learned that years ago when my mentor, another mentor elsewhere, told me about that. Graduate school is different than undergrad. You get to negotiate, and don't be afraid to negotiate for aid. I had one of my closest friends here. He went to the social work school here at Berkeley, but he's from a very low-income area. Didn't have his dad around, and barely graduated high school. But in college, he somehow straightened things out, wound up getting into Berkeley. But a mistake that he made was he was afraid, once he got into Berkeley, to ask for aid, because
Right.
he's afraid that they'll revoke his scholarship. So he's like, I'm even lucky to get in here, so I'm not even going to negotiate, which is a big mistake. So we don't want you making that mistake. If you got into the school, they really want you, and let them know. Yeah, okay, if it's Columbia, I wanted to come here since I came out my mom's womb, and I really want to come here, but UCLA is giving me more money. So, and I need that, and I need that. That's going to help me because, school's too expensive. So definitely leverage that, and, and like Jeff said, do it in a very respectful way. Don't be arrogant about it.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question here. So this last question is about loan forgiveness programs, and I know you talked about quite a few different ones, but aside from service programs, are there other ways to get help paying off loans? I know you kind of hear, or I hear a lot actually in random advertisements about different companies, different programs, governmental forgiveness, things like that. Could you touch on that just a little bit more?
That's really not, unfortunately, not my area of expertise. I'm not sure, Sonny, if you know more about that, but I will say that there are not just government programs, but there are private organizations now, particularly if you are a provider of health. If you're a physician, a nurse practitioner, a PA, a mental health professional, social work, there are programs that even organizations, in order to recruit you, they may have a loan forgiveness program that's built into your recruitment package. Some organizations, like I know for Kaiser, if you're a physician, I believe, or a certain kind of physician, they have opportunities like that. Or they'll pay you a sign-on bonus that will really be a significant contribution in itself to help begin paying off your loan or something like that. So I would look for government sources in your area, in your field, and I would look at both at the federal and state level. And I would also look for private organizations, nonprofit organizations, typically maybe larger ones that might be able to do that, or small practices sometimes too. There were people that worked in the small physician practice I worked in. There was a private physician group, but they had ways to help provide loans and help pay off people's loans as well.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that.
So, I really appreciate everybody participating today. Hopefully this has helped you get some more information about getting your graduate school paid for, and hopefully you get the message that go for the graduate school that's the best fit for you. And once you get in, you will figure out a way to get it paid for. And we'll look forward to having you on our webinar next week about medicine and public health. Please review our previous webinars and blogs and other resources on the website that have a lot of great information about graduate school and paying for it and how to live your authentic health career. So with that, I'll thank Sonny and Christina and thank all of you for participating. Good night.